Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I'm Scott Nichols.
You've been going to the doctor lately? I mean, you go what? Once a year for your annual checkup?
A couple times a year, yeah.
Couple times. Okay. Well, I guess both of us being diabetic, we got to go 4 times a year. And what are some of the things that the doctor tells you to monitor, to look out for, from spiking or getting too high?
Weight, glucose, whatever.
Okay. Cholesterol. Okay. Do they tell you to exercise more?
They do.
Okay. Do they tell you to watch your diet?
They do.
Okay. I'm not saying that because the doctor says the same stuff to me too. Yeah. I don't know that I entirely follow their suggestions or recommendations. Sure. I mean, because, your blood pressure, all these different things. So, but these are things that we can do to try and stay more healthy, right?
Right.
Okay. What do you do? Or has the doctor ever asked you when you've gone in about your social network, your social connectivity to live physical people?
I don't know that I've ever been asked that question. I know that other people have. Uh-huh. I know that my kids have. I mean, there are things like that, but I don't recall ever being asked that question.
Okay. Neither had I. And that's why I thought we could talk about that maybe today. The role or the impact that our social connection can have, not just on our happiness, but on the longevity of our life.
Okay. So are you suggesting that if I'm a hermit in the woods writing a manifesto that I might not be healthy?
I'm suggesting that you might actually live a longer life if you were not a hermit living in the woods writing a manifesto of some sort.
Okay, because I just want to say that everybody I've ever heard of that lived in the woods and wrote a manifesto did bad things.
Okay.
So,
well, you don't have to live in the woods writing a manifesto by yourself to do bad things. But what I wanted to address was, smart Alec, is the idea that our connection to other people can have on our lives. Now, we've talked before. In fact, I think it was our last episode. We did on music and the power that music can have on our happiness, but also on our brain health.
Right.
And a healthy brain helps keep dementia at arm's length. But one of the things that we don't necessarily talk about, especially our doctor doesn't talk to us about, is our social network.
Right.
And I'm not talking Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat. I'm not talking social media. I'm talking who are the people that we talk to regularly, not just in our house, but outside. Our friends, again, our social network.
Right.
And because here's the thing, isolationism, when we isolate ourselves, we are having a huge negative impact on not just our mental health, but on our physical health.
Right.
In fact, there was a study I ran across that was saying that if we are chronically lonely, okay, it has the same physical effect on our body as smoking 15 cigarettes a day or living with obesity.
Oh, my goodness.
And when I saw that, I'm going, ooh, that's not good. But I think to myself, and I'm a relational person. I like to be able to relate something to something else.
Right.
And my mother-in-law lives with us and has for a long time now.
Yeah.
She has no social network outside of immediate family.
Right.
She has no social network. And we have all watched her cognitive decline. And like anything, it starts slow and picks up speed as it goes along. And it got me. So when I was running through this, I thought, oh my gosh. And I then started thinking about my friends who I know who are a little bit older than I am. And it's kind of like, how are they staying, healthy? How are they staying, alert and staying with us in a good way? And it's kind of like, wow, they have a decent network of friends.
I think this is why assisted living works out well. Right, because the older people can live in a place where they get some help, but then they also have events that they can go to, where you can play games, you can have the senior dance thing that goes on at the community. I mean, there's ways for them to connect, at least with each other, to broaden their circles.
Okay.
In those last years, and I think that for a lot of people that works out really well.
It can.
Unfortunately, it's also very expensive, but
well, yeah, the good ones are.
So, that's, and I'm not talking about nursing homes per se, right?
No.
That's more of a hospital kind of a situation
right.
a lot of times. I'm talking about assisted living where the person is largely living on their own, just with a little bit of assistance.
Some of those like over 50 or over 55 communities.
Or even when you're getting into your 70s or whatever, when you can't do everything on your own, but you are certainly still there cognitively and you can get around and do the other things.
Yeah. We've talked to my mom at different times over the last few years since my dad has passed away.
Yeah.
On, when she's ready to leave the farm, where would she like to go and what are your options? Because here's the thing. It is, and that's why I thought maybe today we could explore a little bit the value that social connection can have. Because I don't know that it is, I think it's highly undervalued. And research reveals that our social connection can be a vital sign to our physical health.
Sure.
So, all right. So I want to
jump in.
All right. So I'm going to start with a research that had almost 3,400 adults across the United States, Great Britain, and Australia. All right. They also included 681 healthcare providers, and they found that both groups significantly underestimated social connection as a health factor.
Wow.
So I'm going, okay, so we're starting with that. All right. But and some of this came out of, and this is where I thought it was kind of interesting, because there's been a lot of stuff that's come out of the unintended consequences of COVID.
Right.
Because, there's been a lot of stuff that's come out about how COVID led to isolation and the depression and the suicide rates that came as a consequence of all of that. But what they were saying is that this goes beyond COVID. This was going on long before COVID. But they were talking about, again, that loneliness is underestimated.
Yeah.
In its negative impact. And that people all over the social spectrum fail to see or recognize the impact that loneliness has on you. And because I don't know that it's deliberate. I think it just happens. I think it's organic and it happens more by default than by design. As we get older, as we retire from work, as we become less physically mobile or active, we don't get out much. We don't engage with people as much.
Right.
And so just by attrition, our circle of people we talk to begins to decrease. And we, more by default than by design, as I said, we isolate ourselves. And so as a result, well, our mental health begins to decline. Because who are we talking to?
Right.
I mean, if you're by yourself, who do you talk to?
Right. Myself.
Yeah. And,
My own head.
As much as I love talking to myself and, and it's fun to have a conversation with myself because I'm talking to somebody smart.
Right.
Okay.
Are you?
I was
Are you talking to somebody smart?
No, I was thinking it would be a sarcastic response.
I'm not sure that I'm the smart one.
But no, we benefit from that social engagement. It activates various parts of our brain that we would not get just by watching TV or, whatever else we might do to entertain ourselves. So here's the thing about some of the impacts. As I mentioned before, social isolation can increase our death or our risk of death about the same amount as if smoking 15 cigarettes a day. I don't even know. Is that a pack of cigarettes a day? I don't know how many cigarettes.
I think there's 20.
20. So basically that would be then a pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
That's the same level of impact. And
Which is huge, right? I mean, that's a huge amount.
Well, if you ask your doctor what's the negative consequence of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, I think they would flip out.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to cut your life down.
Well, And here's part of what they were discovering is that loneliness triggers our inflammatory responses. It can elevate our stress hormones.
Okay.
And worst of all, it can negatively impact our immune system. And what's one of the worst things that an old person can do is get sick.
Yeah.
Because already our immune system isn't working at peak efficiency. So if we're more likely to get sick, well, then then we have to go to the doctor, and then, or maybe, God forbid, it's so bad we got to go to the hospital.
Right.
And if we are feeling sick, well, we might be less stable on our feet. We might be more dizzy. We might trip. We might fall. And the next thing you know, because we were sick, we fall, we break a bone, and things just kind of spiral. So we don't want that. So again, isolation can have that kind of a negative impact. But here's where I think it ties in with smoking the cigarettes. Social isolation is linked to higher rates of hypertension, heart disease, and stroke.
Okay. Those are all bad things.
Well, I think so. I mean, you think about, the people we know, and, my mom would always share different stories of, so-and-so had a heart attack, or so-and-so died by stroke, or had a stroke and have struggled to, recover, or is slowly recovering, or these things then led to a very fast spiral decline that led to, then ultimately they're passing away.
Right.
And so I'm going, good grief.
That's a lot.
Well, yeah. And here's the other thing. When we are lonely, we're going to increase our feelings of depression. It's going to increase our sense of anxiety.
Okay.
It's going to increase our brain's decline, so our cognitive skills go down. And now it says here our sleep quality goes down. I will say that as my dad's health decreased, he actually slept a lot more, but he couldn't really watch TV.
Right.
He couldn't read anymore, and there was nobody to really talk to other than my mom.
Right.
So I don't know. He slept a lot. So I don't know. They say your sleep quality. I don't know how they measure that.
But that doesn't mean that the quality of his sleep was good. It just meant he slept a lot.
Well, true.
Two different things.
The other and final thing they said is that loneliness made it much harder for you to recover when you did get sick. Not only did it increase your chances and likelihood of becoming sick, your recovery rate was significantly lower. And I don't know if that has something to do with, well, why should I get better? Why should I fight to get healthy again?
Sure.
Anyway, so I thought that was interesting. But I guess what really got me was the role that healthcare providers play in addressing this. Or I guess the other part, the better way to look at this is how they may not help in this issue. Because while they may acknowledge its value, your social connection.
Sure.
What are they doing to help promote you being active, especially as you become an older senior?
I mean, to be fair, though, my doctor asks me about my diet and then tells me I need to change it. I don't actually do it.
Okay.
I'm not very compliant. So they have limitations, right? I mean, they can encourage, they can provide literature, they can try to educate me and why I should do that. But the bottom line is, if I'm not ready to play along,
okay,
it ain't going to happen.
Okay, fair point. But here's some of the things that I found interesting that they addressed in this study.
Okay,
is that a lot of times medical doctors are not assisting in helping address our social network and the value and importance. And what I mean by that is not only are they not asking questions,
right?
There's limited ways for them to even test for social connectivity.
Sure.
For us to, for them to determine just where are you on this loneliness factor.
Okay.
And so as a consequence, by the time they may realize, they've got all these negative health effects, and they begin to explore that, it may be too little too late.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I mean, that's where, something they could refer to is, and there is a whole, and I'm discovering this, there's a whole line of therapists that their primary job is to work with the elderly. And part of that is to be a social network. I mean, I've heard time and again the value that Meals on Wheels have.
Right.
Because that's that social connectivity, that social network. And that's kind of why they have like Meals on Wheels. And so, I don't know. I just found it very interesting, the healthcare's, well, for lack of a better term, blind spot.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've never been asked the question. I don't recall ever being asked that question. Is that something that a general healthcare provider would ask, or,
I don't know. I think I'm going to have to ask my doctor when I go see him again as to how often. I don't know. For me, again, this was a fascinating concept. And so when I was reading the study, it really kind of hit home.
Yeah.
Because, again, I'm using my parents, I'm using Sherry's mom as a way for me as a reference point.
I mean, I know that kids tend to spiral into that isolation, even using social media. Like, social media itself is very isolating.
Oh, yeah.
And so despite being, connected to lots of people around the world, you don't know any of them. And so there's no real connection. And those people generally play to the negatives for you and probably don't lift you up at all. So like these kids get very isolated in that, and it causes the anxiety, the stress, all the things that you said here. Now, maybe they don't have the medical problems yet, but if you stay in that state, that's where you're going to end up.
So what does it say? That there's a lot of information out there about social isolation amongst teens and kids or people in their 20s, but we're not looking at that same thing at seniors in their 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Yeah, I mean, I think that some of this is addressed with things like the attempts at good assisted living communities that have these activities, but it's not widely pushed to do that outside of those areas necessarily.
Okay.
I do think that if you live in cities, there's some opportunity for that. Like, I mean, I know that there's, like, in New York City and stuff in Central Park, there's places where you can play chess.
Yeah.
They have, these activities set up that people get to do. And a lot of times it's the older people doing them. Mm-hmm. And so that gives them that spot to do that. But, if you're out in the rural area like your mom is, that's harder to do.
Well, and yeah, because she's still pretty mobile.
Sure.
I mean, she gets in the car and she drives. She'll drive from where she lives in Arkansas up to the Kansas City area to see my sisters.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it was October of last year. She drove down here to see us. Well, I won't say all the way into Dallas. She drove basically to the Texas-Oklahoma border. I met her there and
Sure.
drove her in. But she still drives. And at 86 years old, she's not afraid. But I look at her social connectivity, and she's always been a very social person. And a lot of it is tied to her connection with church, participating in, the choir and a Bible group. And so I think that's helped. I worry about, and my sisters and I all worry about what will happen when she is not able to be less mobile.
Right.
So, but again, I found very fascinating. They were talking about, again, the value that social connection has. I mean, we've talked about this other times about, the role that loneliness has. It can increase our blood pressure, which blood pressure leads to all kinds of other problems that can kill you. We've talked about that loneliness can increase, limited sense of self-worth. And suicide, we talk about that a lot amongst, teenagers, especially with the kids we worked with, or you still do. I guess I still do. But I found I guess what I liked was the idea of what we can do to make some changes on this.
Right.
And I think part of it starts with public health campaigns. They need to change a little bit. And congratulations on working with younger people, but what are we doing for older people?
Right.
How are we helping older people in our community to stay connected to each other, connected to the outside world? Again, Meals on Wheels is a good thing, but how often do they have other programs? Of course, where's the funding going to come from is always a big issue.
Yeah.
And of course, you also run into somebody like my mother-in-law who, well, I don't want to leave the house. I don't like when people come. I don't.
Yeah.
So you're going to run into that, and you can't help all the people. But if we could do more to get the message out there, more social connections.
Sure.
Just a thought. But again, our doctors, it would be kind of nice. Would our doctors start communicating, asking, our seniors as they are in their 70s and 80s, what are you doing to connect to other people? Asking these kinds of questions, providing community resources that might be in our towns that can, one of the things that helps Sherry's mom is that we have all these people that come to see her during the week. It might be a nurse, it might be a health practitioner, might be an occupational therapist, physical therapist. She has like 3, 4, 5 people a week come and check on her and visit with her that's not family. And so that kind of helps. Some of the other things that they talk about is, just addressing that there is a problem.
Right.
And trying to head things off at the pass. Share this information, for people our age. What are we doing?
Right.
And to strengthen our social connection.
I mean, I do this podcast, but no, I mean, I think that's true, right? Like, what do you do? Do you go to the gym? Is that an isolating thing in and of itself? Because you don't necessarily talk to anybody there. Are you reading books that you're sharing with other people? Are you getting out to the movies? I mean, what are you doing? Right? Are you going out to eat with other people and having some conversation? Or do you go home and sit on the couch? So, I mean, it's just, there's 2 ways of looking at it. Do I definitely want to go home and sit on the couch some nights? Absolutely, right? Like sometimes you're just toasted, right?
Sure.
Just want to chill. But a lot of times going out to dinner or, getting into a social event is very uplifting, right? Mm-hmm. To be able to talk to other people.
It's not that you can't go home and chill out.
Sure.
It's, are you there 24/7, 365? And you're right. There's different things. Your community center, maybe you got a senior center.
Yeah.
Highly encourage. Sometimes I think you might have to kind of, if you're the child of an adult senior, well, then take them. Go with them. I know my mother-in-law refused, even though, because we have a senior center, not too far from us. But she goes, no, I don't want to go be with those old people.
Right.
And it's kind of like, well, but you might benefit. Well, sometimes I think you maybe have to. I know for myself, sometimes I have to be forced into it the first time for me to go, oh, well, this wasn't like I thought it would be. This is actually fun. This is kind of enjoyable. And so I don't know. Like I say, I dread getting older, and I'm going to fight it tooth and nail. But I'm a social person.
Yeah.
I thrive on social interactions.
Yeah.
But Sherry's just fine with limited social interaction. And what happens to her when her circle gets smaller? Because you can get too small.
I don't know.
So I don't know. These are serious physical issues related to a social, emotional issue.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I say, we don't ignore issues like smoking a lot or obesity or high blood pressure, but we ignore our social interactions or lack thereof. So if we can maybe change the narrative a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. What does that look like?
I don't know. In this case, I don't have a lot of answers. I have a lot of questions. But I was, like I say, kind of shocked and surprised what the science is showing about the unintended consequences, especially amongst our older population when they are socially isolated from others. And so if we want to create a longer, healthier, more meaningful life for ourselves or those that we care about, well, we need to encourage and push social interaction, getting out. And it doesn't have to be daily, I don't think, but, involved with church, go down to the community center and do one of those older aerobic, water aerobic things.
Sure. I'm not going to do that, but you can, we can intentionally just do something, right? That gets you out with other people.
It doesn't have to be something. Maybe you could, sing as you go. Just a thought. I don't know.
I'm picturing like Monty Python or something. But yeah, I mean, it starts with us, right? Like, so it's just about what can you change with you? And if you are seeking out other people to be with, then you're affecting them too. So it's all good. It's just a matter of how do you change your life to be more interactive.
Well, true. If you've got a neighbor that is elderly that you don't see as often as you used to, then, how hard would it be to pop in, stop over, say, hey?
I agree.
I don't know. Just a thought.
Well, I mean, I think this has been great.
So,
and I know it's a minute or two shorter than normal, but I think it's fine because we probably need to get out of this room and go get some interaction.
Yeah, social interaction would be good.
So.
All right. Well, then, until next time, I'm Rod.
I'm Scott.
See you later.
Bye-bye.